Welcome back to my movie review series. Today's review will be the 1996 Warner Brothers animated movie, and that is Space Jam. The movie is based on the characters from the original Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies cartoons from 1930s except for Lola Bunny, who made its debut. The movie premiered on November 15, 1996. The movie airs on ABC, Freeform, HBO Family, Discovery Family, Nickelodeon, Syfy, TBS, TNT, TruTV, FX, and streaming on HBO Max and Netflix. In 1973, a young Michael Jordan tells his father, James, about his dreams of playing in the NBA. 20 years later, following James's death, Jordan retires from basketball to become a baseball player. In outer space, the amusement park Moron Mountain is in decline. Mr. Swackhammer, the park's proprietor, learns of the Looney Tunes from the Nerdlucks, his quintet of minions, and orders them to abduct the Looney Tunes to serve as attractions. The Nerdlucks enter the Looney Tunes universe underground and hold them hostage before Bugs Bunny convinces them to allow the Looney Tunes to defend themselves. The Looney Tunes challenge Nerdlucks to a basketball game. Noting the latter's small stature, the Nerdlucks research the sport and infiltrate various games, stealing the talents of Charles Barkley, Sean Bradley, Patrick Ewing, Larry Johnson, and Muggsy Bogues. The Nerdlucks use these talents to transform into gigantic, muscular creatures known as monsters, and the Looney Tunes realize that they need professional help. The Looney Tunes pull Jordan into their universe as he golfs with Bill Murray, Larry Bird, and Jordan's assistant, Stan Podolak. Bugs explains their situation to Jordan, who is initially reluctant to help. However, Jordan agrees after a confrontation with the Monstars, and forms the Toon Squad with the Looney Tunes. They are joined by Lola Bunny, with whom Bugs is enamored. Jordan is unprepared, however, and sends Bugs and Daffy Duck to his house to obtain his basketball gear. Jordan's children aid them and agree to keep the game a secret. While Stan, searching for Jordan, notices Bugs and Daffy, follows them to their world and joins the team. Meanwhile, the incapacity of the 5 NBA players results in national panic that culminates in the season's suspension. The players try to restore their skills through various methods, with no success. The game between the Toon Squad and the Monstars commences, with Swackhammer arriving to observe. The fate of the Looney Tunes' lives and the basketball season hang in the balance. The story is decently written and well-paced, has a good amount of humor even if some of it doesn't work, can be decently heartfelt, and the film does have some charm, and does have an engaging last third with the game. However, the scenes with the basketball players who had their talent stolen stop the movie in its tracks, and aren't really needed. With the exception of the ending, there is a decent amount of comedy that does manage to get a laugh, like Bugs and Daffy evading Michael's dog when they're in his house, some of the visual gags and slapstick, and some of the banter between the characters. But there are some jokes that don't work and feel out of place for a Looney Tunes film. For example, there's a bit of toilet humor, and a scene where we see Pound's bare ass during the game. The Heart the Big Game at the end is a lot of fun, is pretty exciting and engaging, and filled with some solid jokes, even if a few of the groaners pop up here. The animation is amazingly well done and the effects team managed to blend it with the live-action footage and actors very well. The characters are all very well designed and have solid movement. The backgrounds and settings and the animated worlds are well detailed, crafted, and colored, and there are some pretty good effects like the lighting, the transformations, some of the CGI, and especially when the animated characters interact with the real-world stuff. The live-action footage does show some pretty solid production values and makes good use of the on-screen locations. The characters are mostly pretty decent and do get some laughs, but there are some that don't really do that much. Michael Jordan is a pretty decent protagonist as he is likable, and even though he wants to pursue another career, he knows that deep down his basketball career will always be part of him. He's also pretty helpful to the Looney Tunes and gives them a much-needed morale boost. Bugs Bunny is still pretty likable and witty, and does come up with his usual plans of beating his foes, except this time they manage to outsmart him, and is actually faced with a real challenge this time. The other Looney Tunes characters are still decently likable and do still get some laughs, but they don't really serve any purpose other than to fill up the member count for the Toon Squad. Daffy Duck's still likably egotistical and cynical, Porky's still likably timid, Taz is still likably wild, and Tweety's still pretty cute and snarky. The others however, like Sylvester, Roadrunner and Weil, Peppy, Granny, Marvine, Yosemite, and Foghorn at the most get one funny line or moment, and that's pretty much all we get from them. Lola Bunny is a decent new character as she is pretty nice and has a lot of skills, and she can also get pretty snarky. She's also a pretty decent love interest for Bugs, and the two do have some chemistry and it does progress throughout the film. The Nerdlucks, Monstars, are pretty decent villains, as at first they start off as mischievous little shits, but it's not really until they become the Monstars when they become a legitimate and imposing opponent to our heroes. On top of that, they can be decently funny too. Swackheimer is technically the big bad of the film as he sends the Nerdlucks with their task, but there's really not a whole lot to him. He's just a hot-headed tycoon and that's it. Stan unfortunately doesn't offer much other than being a timid and mild-mannered man who acts as Michael's assistant. He doesn't really say or do anything that funny, which is a shame since he's played by a pretty funny actor. The acting is pretty solid and does lead to some pretty good performances from Michael Jordan, Wayne Knight, and Bill Murray. The voice cast is also pretty good as there are some solid vocal performances like Billy West as Bugs and Elmer, D. Bradley Baker as Daffy and Taz, Kath Soucie as Lola, Bob Bergen as Porky, Tweety, and Marvine, Bill Farmer as Sylvester and Yosemite, Morris LaMarche as Peppy, June Foray as Granny, and Danny DeVito as Swackheimer. The music is pretty well done as James Newton Howard provides a well-composed, comedic, light-hearted, and intriguing. And there's also a pretty solid selection of songs featured like Space Jam, Fly Like an Eagle, Hit 'Em High, For You I Will, I Turn to You, and the iconic I Believe I Can Fly. Verdict: 9.5 out of 10. Despite all its flaws, Space Jam is a pretty fun and entertaining movie with some good laughs, so I'd say check it out, especially if you're a basketball fan. Another thing I like from this movie is that a new Looney Tunes character who's a rabbit girl, and that is Lola Bunny, made its debut. Lola Bunny is overall awesome, smart, badass, and mostly hot like fire.